Friends, I just pressed the let's go live button, which means we've got to wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet before we go ahead and get started. Got to make sure those tubes are connected and alive and well. Sometimes we get some feds or something in there. I don't know what it is, but it looks like they are connecting on Rumble, over on Locals, over on our YouTube friends. Hello, our Telegram friends, X everywhere. It's working. Let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney, and today we are talking about Georgia and an election trial that is underway there. And this has been going on for quite some time. We've covered this in previous videos. The judge who is presiding over this bench trial is called Amy Totenberg. And we went through an opinion from her some time ago here on this channel. And she said, there are a lot of problems there in Georgia with their Dominion voting systems. They had some changes. Brad Raffensberger, you remember the Secretary of State here, that has been the subject of a lot of 2020 Trump saga stuff. Well, there's this trial that's been, I think, going on for about 6 years, okay, going all the way back to 2018 about the equipment, the machines, and everything is not really in good working order there. And there's a trial that's happening right now in federal court. Now, we don't have access, of course, because it's federal court, to peer inside and see what's happening because it's all silenced in federal court. But we do have a couple of interesting filings that I want to share with you, including this one that was filed just a day or two ago that is explaining that the judge has denied a bunch of the plaintiffs' witnesses. So like a whole slew of them we're going to see, and they're just making a record. They're saying, all right, look, this is the notice of our proffer of evidence. We are preserving the record for appeal, saying that this judge, this Obama-appointed judge, her name is Amy Totenberg, has rejected their witnesses. And so we want to go through that because Georgia is going to be a battleground. Obviously, they're going to try to flip this one over into the blue category again with their broken water main breaks and other things. And so we're going to go through and get an update on what's happening here. I've got one article, and these are all really cordoned off type of trials because it's in federal court, no video. And because this one doesn't have a ton of attention to it, we don't have any great, X scripts that we can go through, but we do have some filings. And the witnesses are being precluded, and they're pretty important witnesses, people who know the inner workings of what's going on in Georgia and who have articulated all of the security problems that are therein. So all that coming up in the first segment. Then you may have seen this clip. We're going to break it down. But apparently there's a documentary coming out from PBS, and it just confirms what we all have already known and covered here, that the J6 committee, which was illegally constituted under their own rules, HR 503, is nothing more than a show trial propaganda team. We're going to go through this clip where they literally tell you that they have to create a story. How do we make it impactful? All this stuff, like they think like they're directors in Hollywood, to go and their word, not mine, storytelling is an important component of what they need to do to tell a story rather than, inquire, just explore the facts. They had to shift the narrative because it's fake and they're just propagandists. So we'll go through that. Thomas Massie had a great interview with Matt Gaetz, and they talk about this pipe bomb guy, the guy who actually discovered the pipe bomb that was right outside where Kamala Harris was seated. And so we'll hear what he says. He's confirming that, yeah, it's Capitol Hill police, right? There were some rumors about this, but he's like, yep, it's the guy. And this is all curious because ex-FBI Stephen D'Antuono, he confirmed for us in his congressional deposition that the person who found the pipe bomb would be a very key suspect. You remember that testimony when we went through his transcript. So it's funny, the FBI's like, wow, whoever discovered that's like suspect number one. We're like, oh, great, you know who that was? The Capitol Hill police, as we've all suspected. And so we're going to go through that and see what Thomas Massie says. Absolutely just hysterical. Then I got a couple of clips from some people on the left, including this woman, former whatever, and she's saying that they're a little frustrated because they're waiting on a ruling on the January 6th case, but would send this back down to Judge Chutkan's courtroom. And every day this gets delayed, their hopes of getting a Trump trial before the election on the January 6th stuff continues to evaporate out the window. So we'll see what she says. And then we'll go over to John Bolton, who's trying to sell a book right now, and he's really cranky. And he's saying, Trump's not going to leave voluntarily. And it's so funny to hear these people complain about Trump like he's going to be this dictator and this tyrant. And you're like, He was just there like 3 years ago. What are you talking about? It's like nothing like you said at all. So it's bizarre, but they got books to sell, and so we'll make fun of him. Then in our final segment, we'll have this update on Alvin Bragg. You see these migrants who are coming just for work and to improve their lives and their families. They're communicating in sign language, I think, to the rest of us in America. This is happening in Alvin Bragg's New York. Of course, he's very busy focusing on Trump's criminal prosecution from Stormy Daniels that doesn't even, have any legality to it because it's a misdemeanor and the statute of limitations expired a long time ago. But we'll leave that aside. Anyways, they've got these migrants who are communicating the song of their people to us, and what they're saying is, well, we'll have to break it down. We'll see what they're saying. We'll save it for this segment. But they were, of course, beating cops in New York City, and then they got released without bail. And so that's what's there in New York. Meanwhile, we've got Dan Crenshaw and others in Congress who are debating this congressional border deal to see if they can cram something disgusting down our gullets before the election. We'll see. We've got reaction from Mike Johnson, and we don't hear from him much, but we got today Mitch McConnell coming up on a clip. And then Lieutenant Patrick will be here as well. He's talking about Texas and their right to defend themselves, all coming up as we get up to speed on what's happening in the border. And so, my friends, as you can see, we've got a lot to get to today. I am grateful that you are here and with us. Happy February. We've got a whole new fresh month ahead of us. January was a burner, and this year is already flying by. We had a great stream this morning with our membos. We talk about all sorts of other topics in the morning streams. We'd like to get our bearings straight, see what the heck's going on in the mornings. What's the president up to? What's C-SPAN? What's Congress doing? Are we in World War III? Stuff like that. We also talk about economics. This morning we talked about the impending debt spiral that the country is in. Actually, this guy, Nassim Taleb, if you follow him, he wrote this compendium called the Insurrection, and he also is the author of the book called Anti-Fragile. We talked about him this morning because he's issuing a pretty, for him, a pretty serious warning. He's like, the country is going to be in a debt spiral. End of video. You go, oh man, from that dude, that's like a level 5 alert. So anyways, that's what we talked about, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Come and join us. We do streams in the morning. We do streams on Saturday. We do an after party after the show's over. We got a great community. We're having a lot of fun. So come and check us out. Also, our website. If you want to get any of the PDFs that we go through here, or if you want to sign up for our newsletter so that you get all the news delivered to your email inbox that you can then forward to everyone you've ever met in your entire life, you can also go to the shop, all at robertgovea.com, and we'd love to see you over there. Now, without any further ado, let's get right into the meat and potatoes on the day. Starting in Georgia. An Obama judge in Georgia has rejected some key witnesses that are necessary in an election trial. The trial apparently is going to expose all of the problems in Georgia, but a little difficult to do if you don't have any witnesses. The judge that we're talking about is Amy Totenberg, and we've gone through an opinion of hers here previously that set this case for a trial. She had evidentiary hearings. This case has been going on for years, since 2018, I believe. And she said, look, we have to have a trial on this because what has been shown is that there are pervasive problems throughout Georgia. They changed their election systems. Brad Raffensberger, you know him, the Secretary of State, is saying everything's perfect. It's the most safe and secure election of all time. You remember all that garbage? Well, she posted an opinion. She said, look, we have to have a trial on this thing because it really is that bad. And in Georgia, a lot of the election officials are freaking out because we got an election right around the corner. And what happens if the judge says, your systems are so bad that you got to do something about it? They're hitting the panic button. And so we're going to go through a couple filings. This proffer of evidence is explaining that witnesses are being precluded by the judge. Hard to prove your case if you don't have witnesses. But this is what Politico tells us. Election officials are really hitting the panic button in Georgia. We got an election coming up. It's a pretty big state. They say there's a recipe for violence. Atlanta District Judge Amy Totenberg, she's weighing whether she can issue an order from the bench to mandate additional protections in Georgia. So everyone's going to be fortifying their elections. And in 2020, when we were here, we covered a ton of election litigation. Oh my goodness, it was maddening. And we're going to see it start to really escalate as this cycle begins. Now, 5 years ago, This case has been going on for a long time. Amy Totenberg, the judge, won plaudits from U.S. election officials for forcing Georgia to ditch its voting machines. Okay, this is a long time ago. Now she's weighing a similar order. The prior machines were susceptible to hack. She said, get rid of them. Now they're asking her to do it again. But this time, a slew of election officials are begging her, don't change the system. You understand why that is, obviously. Previously, they needed her to ditch its electronic voting machines and then install new ones that were, anti-Trump. Then if she fortifies the elections and they have to fix everything, those fixes maybe won't be anti-Trump. And so now they're saying, please don't change it. We like it how it is. It went blue last time. Current and former officials from both parties at local, state, and federal level, they argue that Georgia's current voting machines are far less prone to sabotage than their previous predecessors were, which didn't produce any paper record at all. But we remember here, we covered all of this. There was a QR code problem where you would go and you'd vote. You'd say Trump, 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 and then submit. They'd say, great, thank you for your vote. It'd print out a QR code. You could read Trump, 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 Trump. But on the QR code, when you scanned it, the computer saw Biden, 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 Biden. And what the heck? And you couldn't tell because the QR code is something that we can't read. So they say they're very panicked now. They say forcing changes to the November ballot is a recipe. Here is a recipe for unrest and potentially violence, said a lone Democrat on Georgia's election board. I don't know what that means. Is she threatening an insurrection for having a safe election, an integrous election? Now, the civil trial that we're about to read from kicked off back on January 9th in Atlanta, expected to wrap on Wednesday. Now, Totenberg, who's going to decide the case without a jury, is going to issue a ruling. And we saw today that there were not going to be some witnesses, and they're marking their record for appeal, saying, you denied our evidence. So that means public confidence in the 2024 election in a key swing state rests to an unusual degree on this one judge. What's she going to do? Now, and while fears of Russian election interference were high at the time back in 2000, her first ruling, now, this time, the stakes are much more concrete. The people and the technology at the heart of the court battle are now at the center of Trump's allegations about a stolen election. Now, Totenberg, an Obama-Appointee, as we saw, is known for her intensity. She went to Harvard. Gosh. And the arguments she first heard in the last few weeks are the latest twists in this case. And remember, Georgia purchased the Dominion voting machines for $100 million. Whew! Dominion sued a bunch of people. Now, they have drawn support in this litigation. Totenberg declined to be interviewed for the story. There were opening arguments on the first day of trial. And in the courtroom, she often leans the side of her head deep into her palm, her eyes barely peeking out at the witness. Now, she has not indicated that she would bar the state's current voting machines like she did in 2019, but she had said that the machines put the state at a real risk of a hack, right? She's admitting this and has floated ordering reasonable fixes. Coalition says that Dominion remains ripe for abuse, and this is where the litigation is going now. Election officials say no. Paper printouts from Dominion machines can help spot tampering, and so there's no real risk. They say it's overblown. All right, so they are explaining what else is happening. So we get the background. Now, let's jump into the actual filing itself so we can see what's happening here. This is, in the case of Donna Curling et al., the plaintiffs versus Brad Raffensberger, the Georgia election case, 16-pager filed in Atlanta, the Atlanta Division, federal court. We see that this is the plaintiff's motion. Let me start over on this one, actually. Yeah, let's start here. This is now plaintiff's notice of a proffer of evidence. All right. So plaintiff Ricardo Davis's first proffer of evidence. Same court, obviously, same case, Donna Curling versus Brad Raffensberger. Now, this is something that came in very recently, January 30th. They say, all right, Your Honor, to Judge Amy Totenberg. They say, on November 14th, our client, Ricardo Davis, who's challenging your bad machines, filed for leave to amend the pretrial order, right? And a pretrial order is something that is going to dictate how the trial works, right? It's an order about how the process will be. And so you settle on it before the trial starts. So everybody knows how much time everybody has, what witnesses are coming, all the things. So they wanted to amend that, and they wanted to add 2 witnesses and a number of designations to the record at the upcoming trial. They're saying, oh, we're going to trial on this. Great. We need witnesses. Now, at the time when they filed this leave to amend, the pretrial order was not yet signed or entered into the clerk's record, so it was still open. Davis's basis, our client, was that he had not been given an opportunity for input into the joint proposal that came out from all of these people, right? So they settled on this joint proposal and they entered it. But our client didn't get any opportunity to be involved. So then we filed a motion to amend, and plaintiff, my client, made an oral proffer, so in court, communicated this openly, that we have evidence about these witnesses, and we want to call these witnesses when this trial happens. But something happened now, obviously. Plaintiff Davis now contends that as a result of the court's order, which denied them, didn't modify the pretrial order, so they couldn't call their witnesses, they say he was denied an opportunity to present his evidence. We got a trial here, and so we're going to be appealing this. Now, he's been waiting 6 years to get to this point, and as such, by rejecting his witnesses, Judge, you have substantially decreased his odds of success. And so we're going to make a record. They say now our client shows that this evidence was relevant and material to the issues that were going on at trial. And the big question was whether or not Dominion and their voting systems that were employed by the state of Georgia, whether or not it infringes on his rights under the Constitution to have his vote count. And so these claims are generally brought under the Equal Protection Clause, but the idea being, if your vote counts and my vote doesn't, then we are not equal under the law. Something has happened in our election laws that have disenfranchised me, or vice versa, disenfranchise you. So if we have equal protection of the law, everybody's votes count the same. And if we're treating all votes differently, that's violating the Constitution. So saying he has a right to pursue this. Now, as a result of Judge Totenberg and your order, our client is not allowed to talk about certain evidence at trial, including these bits. For example, they say that our client was prohibited from offering designated depositions into the record, one from Kathy Latham. Now, she is a key eyewitness whose deposition testimony supports our claims that the machines are bad. The intent of Mr. Davis was to include specific designated depositions, including her referenced affidavit that has eyewitness details of how the Coffee County Dominion system was accessed wirelessly, despite claims from the vendor and the defendants, right? Kind of an important witness. Who is accessing the stuff wirelessly? So our client, he contends that these designated depositions that are already identified in the docket, they would show the following things. If we could call this guy as a witness to show that your machines are bad, this person would show that during the 2021 Senate runoff, Kathy, the person, served as a voter review panelist who was actually in the computer room on election night. She was there with Misty Hampton and Ernestine Thompson Clark, who is a representative of the Democratic Party. Now, in addition to the absentee and the UCAVA ballots, there were approximately 6,000 advance voting ballots from a field scanner that failed during early voting that required scanning after the polls closed. Now, as they began scanning these, and she's a witness there, the 6,000 advance ballots on the Dominion ICC central scanner, the workstation computer displayed a QR code failure error message. Oh no! That rejected at least one ballot for every small batch, including batches of only 5 to 10 ballots. So a bunch of stuff got rejected. Now the 6,000 ballots. And remember, in Georgia, I believe the margin was about 11,000. So the QR code failure error only occurred on ballots that were cast for 3 Republicans. Oh, that's weird. How'd that happen? Republicans David Perdue, Kelly Loeffler, and Bubba McDonald. All their ballots got rejected. Wonder what happened. Dominion technician, this guy called Samuel from Colorado, was an extra technician assigned to the county after recount failures occurred in the other elections. What happened with the recount failures in June 2020 primaries and November, the 2020 election? Wild. Now, the technician just came out and said, oh, just wipe the scanner down, all right? Just blowing it. Blow some canned air in there in the eye of the scanner. I'm gonna blow. Well, guess what? That didn't help. It's like your old Nintendo games. Hey, just smack the TV on the side. Maybe the antennas will work. So Eric Cheney then ordered Mr. Chalandris to get his boss on the phone. He said, why is this rejecting all of our Republican ballots? Hello, get your boss. So then they called Dominion, this guy, Scott Tucker. And he says, why don't you step outside the room there before you... They had a private conversation outside the room. He comes back 30 minutes later. He's like, the machines are fine. Okay, they're just fine. Just tell them they're fine. Blowing it. Tell them to blow harder. You have more canned air? Go to Best Buy. Go get some more. Mr. Chalandris walked back into the computer room, stood next to the scanner holding his cell phone, and then he told Misty Hampton to try one more time. Oh, literally, that's what happened. Try it again. Turn it off and turn it on again. She was able to run the remaining batches of ballot with no problem, although no Dominion technician touched the voting system. Stood next to the scanner holding his cell phone, and then it fixed it. I guess that's the implication there, right? Stood next to the scanner, held his cell phone, and said, try it again. Then she ran it and it worked, but no one touched the machine. So I don't know. Did they, maybe the can is, two options. One, the can air worked and it just worked, or there's more to the story. So anyways, here's the affidavit that they want into the record. So the next person they want to talk about is Misty Hampton. Now, plaintiff was also prohibited from tending certain designated depositions into the record. Misty Hampton, a key eyewitness whose deposition testimony is supportive of Mr. Davis's claims. They say he was going to call her Misty Hampton because this was a designated deposition. She has eyewitness details of how Coffee County Dominion system was accessed wirelessly, again, despite their claims. Now, these designated depositions are, they're pointing this out. Like, we've already done these depots. Okay, they're already supposed to be here. This is already set for trial, and they're already in the scope of this. So we want to show from Misty Hampton, and by the way, the judge rejected all these people, so they're not going to testify. Or rather, these depots are not going to be included as part of the record, apparently. But here's what she would have said. The Coffee County ICC mail-in ballot server was having severe ballot rejection problems back in January 2021 during the Senate runoff. The on-site Dominion technicians, one of whom is believed to be Gary Gaines, could not correct the ballot rejection problem. The technicians were pressured by the Coffee County election board member, this guy named Eric Cheney, to resolve the ballot rejection problem promptly. Fix it now. The two technicians went outside for 20 to 30 minutes, and one of them told her, try scanning the ballots one more time while holding a phone about 3 feet from the scanner. That's weird. They're just like, hey, just here, put it next to it. It's going to transmit a code or something. Now, the ballot scanning problem was then resolved, and the scanners worked perfectly without either Dominion technician touching any of the equipment. What the heck? You know, technology is weird. Sometimes it's like if you like touch it over here, it just starts working again or something, but they're not even touching it. It's just a cell phone. Maybe the machines are talking to each other. Weird. So they want to get her records in. Judge said no. Another person, this guy called Jeffrey Lenberg. They say our client was not allowed to call another previously deposed witness. Now, this is a key fact witness as well. They say the intent of this witness was to ask him about details about wireless access about Dominion. Again, 2021 runoff. If questioned for an hour or less on the serious security vulnerabilities about Dominion, right? We just need an hour or less. Don't even need a lot of time. This is what he would have been able to confirm at a minimum through his testimony. This guy, Jeffrey Lenberg, he would have said, if he testified, well, first of all, he says, I'm a retired testing person for nation-state vulnerability. Wow. I got over 30 years of experience at Sandia National Laboratories. Would have been nice to hear from him. Now, he came to Coffee County for several days to determine why the scanner was rejecting ballots back in 2021 during the Senate race. He identified that network connectivity between the scanner and the election management server allows the scanner to be remotely configured. Oh, that's why the witnesses were saying that they could just hold their cell phones up. Oh. Now, he determined that adjustments in scanner settings can cause ballots to be rejected, or they can correct a ballot rejection problem. He instructed Misty Hampton, previously seen, to run a series of tests on the scanner without him touching any of the equipment. And then he determined the exact scanner setting that Dominion changed remotely to correct a ballot rejection problem occurring on the evening of 2021. So they just fix it remotely. They said we can't do that. So he determined that once the setting was changed, he could replicate the problem that we experienced back in 2021. He also found that the scanner setting value that would reject the ballots cast for Republicans at a 6-to-1 ratio over ballots cast for the Democrats. So we know how these scanners work. We did a lot of this election litigation stuff. But basically, they feed it a form, right? They feed it a template like this, and they program it. So they say, okay, this box is this. Okay, so this box is Trump. This box is Biden. And then they print the template out. Then they have to program the scanner. So the scanner images this, and then they have to say, okay, if you see a mark like in this location, Mr. Scanner, Mr. Computer Scanner guy, software, then if you see something in this region, then count that for Trump. If you see something in this region, boop, 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 boop over here, then count that one for Biden, right? So like they say, and if you see a mark over here, then that means that they signed it or whatever. So they have to match it. Then when the scanners come through, it just, boom, 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 right? Counts it all. So what they have done, it sounds like, is maybe, shrunken this margin or something. If it's a Trump thing, it just gets rejected. So that is off, and it's specifically for Republicans. It's not happening for Democrats. Weird. Now, here's another person who they are apparently not allowed to talk about at this trial. He was not allowed to call another previously deposed witness called Ben Cotton. Now, the intent of Cotton was to ask him about extensive vulnerabilities in the Dominion voting system that was used in both elections, 2020 and 2021, and the wireless access that occurred in 2021. Now, if questioned for an hour or less, this is what this guy would have said. One, that the server installation includes uncertified software that can be used for database manipulation. Great. Nice. And the server received no updates for antivirus protection since the installation, whenever the heck that was. Also, the operating system received no update since its original installation. And we're going to come back to this because what we're going to read in the next filing is that Dominion just said, well, we just updated our software. Just go update your app. It's all fine. Just update it. And they're going to say they can't even talk about that because none of that was included in the prior disclosures leading up to trial. So they say hundreds of program files were updated after the installation was complete. By whom, for what? The installation activates the wireless profiles for the Dell server chipset. Oh, so they actually have wireless chips in there, obviously, and they're activated. And if you install it, it activates the profiles. It also activates the wireless drivers, so it's actually doing stuff with it. And the installation also allows a wireless router to be added to the server network. Wireless cards and wireless devices exist within the server network, and the firewall rules allow remote access from any IP address in the world. Wow, that's pretty cool. Wow, how fancy. Now, the election management server is installed to be visible from a remote phone or computer. And the default port is detectable wirelessly from a remote phone or computer. Now, election databases are configured to allow it to be remotely accessed, the databases, and election databases are visible from a remote wireless device. Also, tabulator and tabulation databases are also visible via remote devices, and a wireless device can be connected to the election database. SQL commands can also be executed against the tabulation or an election database from a remote device, and audit logs confirm that the QR code error that rejected ballots in 2021 was resolved at roughly the same time the eyewitnesses personnel resolved the error without touching the system. So they made some remote codes. Now, we want to submit all this as evidence, and we have been denied that. And so we make this proffer in good faith to preserve our client's rights in the event of an appeal, which maybe will happen. We'll see. So signed by David Olace there in Georgia. And that's very curious. A lot of vulnerabilities there and a lot of people who we would like to hear from, who we think could add value to the conversation about who may or may not have been manipulating the data wirelessly and then magically just updating the scanner settings and everything through the cell phone. Pretty incredible. Now, it's amazing that Fox News settled that claim for like $800 billion when all this is still ongoing, but that's Fox. Now, here's another filing that came in prior to the trial. And I wanted to share this so we could see what they are explaining is happening here. What Dominion is trying to do is to just say, just update your software, and that's going to solve everything. But they are saying we need to exclude that evidence. Okay, it's not even relevant to the claim. They say we have to, Dominion now has 5.17. So here they are moving to exclude this. They say Dominion and Brad Raffensberger, I mean, Brad Raffensberger really, as an analog of Dominion, defending the systems, they say they want to introduce evidence about their efforts to adopt a new version of Dominion. And they say, oh, this new version is going to mitigate our vulnerabilities because this guy called Dr. Halderman, he identified problems and CISA even validated them. Now they say that's okay. Even though it's like problematic, it's new software. They say, no, you can't talk about this in this trial. Why? Well, because you never provided any discovery about version 5.17, even though we asked you for it many times. Now, if you intend to introduce evidence about 5.17 as part of your defense, you needed to disclose that to us so that we and our experts could actually evaluate whether it actually does mitigate the serious security vulnerabilities that you guys are using. But obviously they didn't want to disclose it because it probably is still filled with holes. So in other words, they just say, no, it's been fixed. We say, okay, let us see it. And they say, well, we're not going to give it to you in our discovery. They say plaintiffs' experts would also need to examine whether 5.17 introduces any new vulnerabilities that could be just as bad or even worse than the ones they identified in the current version. And we are entitled to take discovery into the costs and the burdens of upgrading this software in the beginning. And it's likely far greater than the relief that we're seeking in this case. Now, defendants, their failure to give us this version 5.17 was not substantially justified at all. And Your Honor, if you let them introduce this at trial, it's going to prejudice us. Now, that is precisely ambush at trial that we do not want to see. Now, further, their supposed efforts to implement 5.17 there in Georgia is irrelevant anyways. We're seeking relief for the 2024 elections. They want to fix 2024, but the state has made clear, including in this trial, that the state will not adopt 5.17 in time for 2024 anyways. And so they should be rejected from being able to talk about it since they didn't give us it in discovery. Now, here's some background. On July 9th, the curling plaintiffs, the people who are suing to fix these problems, submitted requests for discovery. Now, within these, we wanted any contemplated plans to replace Georgia's systems. They objected, and of course, as a result, we did not get documents related to 5.17. But all these documents are responsive to us. How do we know this? This guy called Michael Burns, he went to the state election board meeting in Georgia, and he explained the difference. He said 5.17 is not even that big of a deal. When he showed up there, he said, quote, it's not really an upgrade. He explained, it will require us to fully rebuild the system. Wow. And that means the election management systems have to be completely rebuilt. What? So it's like a total overhaul. It is not an upgrade, 5.17. It differs from 5.5a. Okay, they currently use 5.5a. So 5.17 doesn't even sound like it's sequential. It's not 5.6 or something. 5.17, it's maybe a whole different framework, which is really strange because as we knew, in 2020, it was the most safe and secure election that America had ever seen. So why do they need to rebuild the entire system if it's so great? You know what I mean? Weird. Like you don't scrap something that's working amazingly well. So he explained that an additional amount of hardware also has got to be procured for the county use. We can't even use that old crap machines that we were using anyways. So with respect to all the equipment, he explained that the transition to 5.17 will require not just a simple install and update, but it will need to be broken down all the way back to the BIOS level, which is like the chip software. When you turn your computer on and you see that like screen like Dell or Acer or whatever it is, like that's the root base. Then that boots up the actual the operating system. So they're not just, it's not surface level stuff. They got to go down and fix the basic operating system. at the root, which is weird because I thought it was perfect. I thought everything was above board. So anyways, later in July, the plaintiffs, they then served their third set of demands saying, hey, can you please give us what we want? We want to know about security vulnerabilities. Why? Dr. J. Alex Halderman, who we talked about here, he is a security expert, and he said there are a lot of vulnerabilities here. So then they responded to the request. It was designated attorney's eyes only, and they do not have knowledge to the security vulnerabilities that were identified in his report. So they're basically, we don't have what you want. Now, subsequently, as we neared the close of fact discovery, the curling plaintiffs emailed Raffensberger, and they said, what's your plan to give us this discovery? You've neglected to give us what we've asked for currently. And they replied that they would we'll review the pending requests and we'll see if there's anything to supplement. Sounds like Fannie Willis's office, my goodness. Now, defendants did not supplement their response at all. They didn't add any information about 5.17. They didn't tell us at all whether any vulnerabilities identified by Dr. Halderman were mitigated or not. So at no time did they supplement their responses or give us anything about 5.17. And so therefore, any evidence that's related to this should be excluded at trial. They did not produce these documents. They did not give it to us in discovery. They failed to supplement this. They didn't talk about any other mitigation efforts. They have not given us any justification for these failures. And if you introduce this, it's going to prejudice our case. Federal rules say they have to do this. Here, they failed to meet the rules. We served our discovery request. They knew about it on time. And we affirmatively requested that they supplement this more than 15 months ago. And now they're trying to dump this on us right at trial. They waited until trial to introduce this evidence. They had years to amend these responses, but they didn't. They failed to produce any documents. They had access to our report for over 2.5 years, and they just dumped it in here. Now, they attempted to explain this. They said, Your Honor, in terms of things that were not produced during discovery ended as to everything but Coffee County last year, and I don't think it's fair for the state to be judged on what it was doing in some cases a year or two ago when we're talking about current threats now. And so the state does move on, and these things have to be able to be provided for them as a fact finder. So that, but it's like, but we really need it though, Your Honor. Now, it fails to acknowledge that discovery was ongoing. They have to continue to supplement that, and they failed to do that. So their failure is prejudicial. It's not like they really need it. They're not doing this out of good faith. It's not like, oops, we just forgot. This is prejudicial, and it's intentional. They did it. They flouted the discovery process, and they deprived us of an opportunity to test their claims because they knew if we tested it, we'd obliterate it. That's why they drop it. But Judge, we're trying. Now, as officials of Raffensberger's office have made clear, 5.17 is a fundamentally new version of the software. It doesn't fix anything. Michael Barnes stated that, quote, it will require not just a simple install and update, but we're going to go all the way back down to the BIOS. Defendants have not identified what, if any, vulnerabilities they've addressed that it actually fixes, and they have no expert that they can even bring in to adequately address any of this during trial. And further, additional discovery would almost certainly establish we would find new and dangerous vulnerabilities within this new stuff. So given that the state's last software upgrade that was supposed to fix things, given the fact that it introduced new vulnerabilities, as well as there's an overall lack of sophistication and an accountability within their election officials, okay, so not only do you have equipment problems, you have software problems, you have implementation problems, like who's implementing the things, and you got like personnel problems. And then once everything's working, you got to, like technically working, then you actually have to process the ballots, and then you got problems there. So everything is problematic here. And when you just said, well, just update your apps, that introduced literally even more problems. So we are skeptical that any additional upgrades would be free from problems. Time and time again, the state has demonstrated they are unable to implement sound election software. We've already seen this going all the way back to the DRE system and the Democracy Suite version 5.5a. So they say, in addition, we should be able to be entitled to take discovery into the cost and the burdens of upgrading the voting machines, right? We've got a short time now between now and November, and we got to fix all 159 counties. We don't want to do that. Defendants have argued in favor of keeping the current system, and they oppose changes that we want to be made here. Now, plaintiffs must therefore be able to take this discovery and show that the relief that they're seeking, and I think they want, more paper ballots, they want less machine counting. They say our version is going to cost far less than the cost of upgrading to 5.17, reinstalling all the BIOS and all the drivers and all the things. So our request is far less burdensome to administer the next election. We're just going to count the ballots by hand. That's fine, no problem. Just look at the paper ballots. That's easy to do. Now, version 5.17 is unlikely to be the last major software update. They're going to have 5.18, 5.19. As long as the state uses BMDs, the equipment, the software and the devices will have to be continuously upgraded, creating massive costs, logistical burdens that are going to be a lot more expensive than what we want. Now, you, Judge, recently ruled that the defendants were not permitted to introduce 7 untimely witnesses, one of whom is this guy called Nick Ikonakomakis. Now, he was slated to discuss version 5.17, so the judge also booted some of their witnesses as well. But in your ruling, Your Honor, the court said that Raffensberger's people did not demonstrate how their failure to timely introduce these witnesses was justified. Same thing here. The subject of his testimony would prejudice us. And the same thing is happening here. They have not explained how their failure to supplement their disclosures, why it was justified, why it was harmless. And so therefore, they should be precluded from introducing it. Now they say, similarly, version 5.17 is not going to be implemented before 2024, so we shouldn't be talking about it here. Throughout their case, we've argued that our relief is for the court to stop the use of the BMD system prior to the election cycle. Just stop them from using it. And we can count them by hand. We'll figure it out. Meanwhile, the state has made clear that 5.17 will not be implemented. So, under the federal rules of evidence, we're not asking for an upgrade here. We're asking for basically enjoinment, right? An injunction to stop them from using the systems. And so it's not even relevant. We are seeking an injunction against the use of the BMD system. Particularly, we want an injunction prior to the 2024 election cycle, lest they risk further disenfranchisement. And Georgia has made clear 5.17 will not be implemented in 2024. How do we know? Charlene McGowan, she's legal counsel for Brad's office, stated that implementing version 5.17 would require the state to physically touch every single piece of election equipment, and that Georgia has 40,000 pieces of equipment that we must go in and physically touch and install 5.17 on each piece of equipment. She further commented that installing 5.17 before 2024 would be a rushed process. Yeah, I'm sure. And so vague statements like the above emphasize Georgia has no immediate plans to implement any of this, and so it's wholly irrelevant to anything we're talking about here. Now, in conclusion, they say defendants did not, Brad and Raffensberger, they did not supplement their discovery responses. They did not explain how they mitigated any of the vulnerabilities that we've identified, and their failure to supplement this is prejudicial. They dropped it all on us right as trial started. So evidence pertaining to all of this is irrelevant. They're not even going to use it in 2024, and we're asking for 2024, so this is of no consequence. Exclusion is necessary to prevent prejudice to the plaintiffs, and so keep it out, Your Honor. And so, very good stuff. I'm very grateful that we've got these attorneys who are fighting in this arena, because we don't have much of it happening now out there, my friends. So, ultra shout outs to David Cross, attorney, Halsey G. Knapp. They're both there in Georgia. He's pro hoc vice. He's coming in from Washington, D.C., from Morrison and Forrester, Crevillon and Horst, doing good work here. Christian G. Andrew Von Yu, also coming in from San Francisco, and some other really great attorneys here. So good stuff. And we'll see what Judge Amy Totenberg does, but we can see there's a lot of questions here about how this equipment works there in Georgia. And Brad Raffensberger has been the one saying everything's perfect, everything's fine, there's no vulnerabilities at all, most safe and secure election of all time. You know, all the garbage that we heard. Obviously, it's not true. And so we're going to be here. We'll see what Amy Totenberg says in her official order when she issues a decision. And so I hope you join us as we cover this. There's going to be a lot of election litigation that starts to pop off here, especially after some of these primaries are over, after Super Tuesday is over. We're going to watch it and cover it. So thank you for joining us as we do, my friends, wherever it is you're watching this. Thanks for hitting the subscribe button and that like button. And we'll look forward to seeing you back here on the next one. All right. Now, let's turn our attention over to the January 6th committee and see what propaganda they have in store for us here today. The fake, illegally constituted January 6th so-called select committee has now been busted. They are admitting openly on camera that they created a story. They had to engage in storytelling to convince America that this was such an insurrection, that it was so profound that they needed to think about the end of America. Because if you just listen to what happened on the ground, listen to the reality of the protests, you would recognize this was not that big of a deal. It was 4 hours or so, and they voted that same night. And they turned it into a civil war, the crime of the century, the worst attack on the American democracy since the Civil War, forgetting about those little things like, Pearl Harbor, 9/11, and so on. But here is the story. They are involved in a documentary, and this is an excerpt from that documentary. And here is what it sounds like, where they're admitting that they had to create storytelling to convince Americans that this was actually a bad thing. Here's what it sounds like.
Thompson's committee had gathered a trove of information. The challenge, what to do with it.
The one thing that we knew was the information that we have is compelling. The thing we needed to do was tell that to the American people in a compelling way.
That's not your job, first of all. So your job is to just investigate the facts, theoretically, right? It's a congressional inquiry where you would have oppositional lines of questioning, right? You'd have opening arguments from both sides. You'd have an adversarial proceeding. One side would ask questions that actually provide a different narrative, the opposite narrative of the main narrative. That's kind of how it happens in court of law. You've got a defense and a prosecution. But that's not what happened here. They needed to tell a story. Facts that are compelling on their own. You don't have to dress them up. When you hear something very bad, you just go, dang, that was bad. Like when a Kohberger situation happens or something, you don't need to dress that up. You just know it. For this, it wasn't enough. They had to turn it into this fake show. And so they brought this guy in to do it.
So that's why we brought in a former president of ABC News.
Yeah, I got a call pretty much out of the blue from the January 6th committee. They wanted a storyteller. And while they were brilliant lawyers, storytelling for a mass audience is not what they do.
Yeah, gotta fake it, man.
To bring in a guy like this who would think outside the box really did prove to be fruitful. And it was Goldston who really began to envision this as, in a way, a kind of mini-series, that there would be, sort of 9 episodes, and that these episodes would tackle particular themes.
Attack on the Capitol, the investigation.
The first hearing was primetime television.
Listen.
The nation is about to witness a defining moment. The first hearing before the country, the results of the January 6th investigation.
This is an extraordinary moment in American history.
When it came to that first hearing, we knew how high the stakes were.
Is about to hold its first primetime hearing.
We were either gonna, make people realize that this was important, or once you've lost them, you've lost them for good.
Yeah, because people don't buy your garbage. So you have to shock and awe everybody into this. Turn it into an HBO special. Fabricate the truth, right? Extrapolate to turn this into a miniseries. It is a show. It's all a show, and it's so pathetic. And doesn't it feel like a scene from like V for Vendetta or one of those movies? Listening to these news anchors come out with their propaganda. It's a shocking moment in American history. Oh my gosh, give me a break, right? It was created as a show, and they all lapped it up like pathetic fools.
On the evening of June 9th, 8:01 p.m., the doors opened. My heart was beating pretty fast on June 9th, and it was a real question of, is this going to work or not?
All right, everybody, here we go. 5 on the line, please.
Are they going to buy it?
I'm in this tiny control room right up the stairs from Cannon Caucus. And we count down to the start of the hearing. And at that point, what can you do?
Here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
The Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol will be in order. Without objection.
We wanted to make sure that this was a presentation that would grab the audience and hold on to them.
Yeah,
Chairman Thompson loved to say, it's got to pop.
It's got to pop. So you can see, right? It was all just scripted garbage. And remember, when we were covering some of this, it was really pathetic to watch, honestly. But if you notice, like at that very last scene, you see they were sitting there with teleprompters. They were just reading from the teleprompters. It was a book report. It wasn't even interesting because it was their own witnesses. They just called witness, direct exam after direct exam. There was no cross-examination. There was no minority party that was even there. I mean, they put on Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, but that was after Nancy Pelosi rejected the 5 Republicans that were supposed to be there under H.R. 503. Remember, H.R. 503 said 8 Democrats, 5 Republicans. Wasn't that? It was 7 Democrats, 2 Republicans. So they were out of order according to their own rules, their own documents. Nancy Pelosi rejected the minority, just posted 2 people on there and just conducted like fake trials. It was wild. And then they used all of their congressional power as a legislative body to go gather evidence with all of their letters. They did it outside of, having to swear an oath as a prosecutor to do justice or anything like that. And they got all the evidence. They bundled it up. They put a bow on it. They gave it over to Jack Smith and Big Fannie Willis in Georgia. And they said, here you go. And they did that outside of the judicial process, right? If you're going to open an investigation into somebody, a prosecutor that swear oaths, and there's some semblance of oversight in the judicial process there, but not with Congress. They can do whatever the hell they want. And they did. And when people denied them, they charged them with crimes like Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro. And so it was propaganda. And the morons in the media, they either knew that and they were okay with that, or they're just as dumb as we think they are. And they bought it. They're like, wow, this is really historic, which is a sad state of affairs, because don't you want those people to have the cognitive capacity to question what they're watching? Do they just take whatever the government hands them and just gobble it up, sucking from their teat? Yeah, but that's not what the media is supposed to do. They're supposed to, what's wrong with this hearing? This is ridiculous. What is this show trial garbage? But they all are just selling their story, right? It should just be like a big commercial, just like with an advertisement underneath it, Pfizer, whatever, Cheney, Pelosi, Kinzinger, whatever. You just get it. They're all just propagandists. And they're admitting it openly. They're sitting there telling us, we wanted it to pop. Just tell the facts, man. Just write the report and we'll be able to tell for ourselves. That's your job, not to sell a fake story. All right, so that is the propaganda arm. Now, I got a lot of questions about this as well, because I want to know, I would want all that footage. If I'm Trump's defense team defending the January 6th charges, well, great. There's a documentary coming out. Incredible. Perfect. I'd like all the raw footage from everything. Judge, can I please have a subpoena for that? Thank you. Because they're talking about January 6th. They talked about how they got the evidence. That evidence, as we know, was used by Jack Smith. And so I'm entitled to see it. So what is their opinion on it? And all the evidence, subpoena, all the documents. Hopefully they got a lot of footage, a lot more interviews, and we can dig into that evidence as well. And they got a lot of bravado, I think. They're telling us what they've done, right? Look, this is what we've done, and we're proud of it. Kinzinger sitting there doing his stupid little documentary face. We've also got, though, Tom Massie, who is explaining, right, it's all a show, it's all propaganda. He comes back and tells us that the person who found the pipe bomb on January 6th was confirmed now to be a Capitol Hill police officer. And this is important because, remember, Steve D'Antuono, who was the former special agent in charge in Washington, D.C., the lead FBI agent in charge of the insurrection investigation, he said this when Thomas Massie was interviewing him. Massie said, "Did you see the video of that pipe bomber, the guy pick up the pipe bomb?" He said, "Yeah." "What was the chain of custody of that video? Are you sure it didn't get compressed or degraded or anything like that?" "Yeah." He says, "I think you agreed earlier, Mr. FBI, that the 2 people who found the pipe bombs, right, the 2 people who found them, they would naturally be suspects. Is that true, Mr. FBI?" "Well, yeah," he says. "It's, I think, in any investigation, if the person that's finding the evidence there could possibly be a suspect, then you kind of rule them out, right, by talking to them and getting evidence. So I would suspect that my agents would have ran that to the ground and ruled them out if you find them. Massie says, so, but the person who found, you either haven't identified the person who found the second bomb, or did you? Did you find that guy? Honestly, sir, I don't know the granularity of everything that we did. A lot of stuff was going on. And so D'Antonio didn't know anything about the actual second pipe bomber, who it was, or anything, or at least didn't admit it. So he's either dishonest to Thomas Massie or he's incompetent because he didn't know who the pipe bomber finder was, or the fact that that pipe bomb finder was a Capitol Hill police officer. So now we know that there was some reporting on this, that it has been confirmed, and now Thomas Massie is confirming that as well for us. Here is what this exchange sounded like between Massie and Matt Gaetz.
With Capitol Police.
Correct. Today.
And what did you learn in that meeting?
I learned that backpack guy, January 6th backpack guy, not to be confused with January 5th backpack person.
Who found the pipe bomb.
Backpack guy was a non-uniform, plainclothes police officer in the employ of the Capitol Hill Police.
The person who found the pipe bomb, the person who D'Antonio, who was leading the investigation, say, oh yeah, the person who found it, it'd be investigation 101 that they would be a suspect initially until ruled out. You're saying that person was an undercover, plainclothes Capitol Police officer, and the Capitol Police confirmed that to you today?
They confirmed that to me today, yes.
Isn't that
By the way,
what does that mean to you?
Well, it heightens some of my concerns and reduces some of the other concerns. Okay, one of the concerns that's heightened was, trying to give the Secret Service and the Metro Police Department the benefit of the doubt when they took 4 minutes. They finished their lunch before they went and dealt with this pipe bomb. I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt and think that, well, if it's just some random passerby and he said, hey, there's something shiny over there, could be a lawn sprinkler, not sure, maybe want to check it out. But that's not what it was. It was a person who was, they say, again, when I relate this to you, I'm relating what the Capitol Police have told me. They say it was a Capitol Police officer who found this bomb, and that he told them it was a bomb. He radioed it in, said, we've got the device. We found another device. Remember, here's the other just amazing timing, is that the first pipe bomb, the one at the Capitol Hill Club, now they call it the RNC pipe bomb, but they really should be calling it the Capitol Hill pipe bomb. I mean, the two buildings are next to each other, but it was like...
The Capitol Hill Club, which is an entity where Republican members of Congress socialize and fundraise.
Right. The reason I'm making that distinction is Darren Beatty, who's done amazing work on this.
No doubt.
He's the guy who's said, hey, you should be asking some of these questions. And I said, you know what, you're right. I will be asking those questions. He points out that the RNC-DNC narrative was made up after the fact. It was really the Capitol Hill Club DNC narrative that they should be talking about, but it just sounds a lot better that, oh, we knew to go look at the DNC once we found one at the RNC.
Interesting.
Well, if you thought somebody was going to blow up the RNC, and don't they hate Republicans? Why would they also want to blow up? Anyways, so, they come down, this plainclothes police officer who had been in the vicinity of that one, they had just found that. The timing is remarkable because it was found 5 minutes before the breach of the bicycle racks at the perimeter of the Capitol. Just a miraculous timing.
With Ray Epps over there.
Would have provided exactly the right timing to distract. After sitting in an alley for 17 hours, found by somebody who says she was going to go do her laundry. Okay, then they respond to that, they secure the area, and 15 minutes later, they find this other bomb. Like, what miraculous timing.
Well, I definitely don't believe that the Capitol Police would purposefully go and set a bomb anywhere that could potentially blow up and do anyone harm. I am not there that they would do something like that. However, you seem to point out in questioning with the ATF director that this wasn't an operational bomb that was going to blow up and hurt anybody. Remember that?
Right. The assistant director in charge, he went on TV and said these were operable bombs, and offered a reward, put out a message that they played on TV.
No.
And so in the beginning of my transcribed interview with him, he still maintained that they were operable.
Well, hold on. We're going to get the ATF director's take on that, questioning from Congressman Massie. Take a listen.
Also, I see that you're cooperating with the FBI, the ATF is, on the January 6th pipe bomb investigation. What can you tell us about how that's going?
Remember, these pipe bombs also, they had a 1-hour timer on them. So the one that was placed the night before, it's a 1-hour timer. So what were they going to do, right? They were either exploded or not, and they were not.
Obviously, that's a significant matter. It is an ongoing criminal investigation, and so I'm not going to comment on an ongoing criminal investigation.
Were those pipe bombs operable?
Again,
the ATF is the expert.
Again, it's an ongoing criminal investigation, and under longstanding policy, I cannot comment.
And we've just had a whole committee for
So
2 years
ridiculous.
that investigated ongoing investigations. So I'm not accepting that answer from you. We need to know these things. Do you know how the pipe bomb was discovered at the DNC? We've been told how it was discovered at the RNC. And according to a press release from the FBI, you're working with them on this investigation.
Respectfully, I understand your disagreement, but I cannot comment because it is an ongoing criminal investigation.
It's an ongoing cover-up.
So helpful.
It's their policy not to comment on ongoing cover-ups.
Yeah, it seems like it.
So here's what I've come to know since that interview too. You chase some leads. I believe, based on discussions with police, with FBI, and with former ATF, who now works for Capitol Police, that the bombs went to Quantico for inspection, not to the ATF.
Amazing.
Now, he could have just told me that in the hearing.
Oh,
right?
interesting.
He could have said, well, we didn't look at the fragments after we blew these things up. It was actually FBI at Quantico looked at them. But he wouldn't even tell me that. So he either doesn't know it or just is so
Give it
stuck
back
on
to
it
the
like
FBI.
a broken record on it's our longstanding policy not to comment.
So we're in this meeting last night, and one of our Republican colleagues turns to you as you're explaining how long it's been that this has been an open investigation, these videos that show the strange behavior of a person we now know was a plainclothes Capitol Police officer. And one of our Republican colleagues kept pressing you and saying, but Thomas, why would they do this? Why would anyone try to plant these phony fake devices in order to create confusion that day? And we don't know the answer to that question, in all honesty. Do you have a working theory?
Yeah, well, again,
yes,
I don't know who did it, but I can
Trump
tell you a
up.
consequence of this, because this is buried in the back of the January 6th committee report, that there was a call to bring more bike racks to the Capitol. They had hundreds of them loaded up, ready to bring to the Capitol to reinforce the Capitol.
Bike racks.
And it turns out those never made it because this DNC pipe bomb was discovered, and they set up a perimeter and blocked them from coming.
So if there was a booby trap intended to have people commit a technical violation of federal criminal law with no intent to break the law, that was facilitated perhaps by the very interestingly timed discovery of these two devices.
Yeah, whether there was intent or not, the result of this, according to the January 6th committee, was that it made it easier to breach the Capitol because the reinforcements couldn't be brought to the Capitol.
All right, super annoying and ridiculous that they had bike racks. Remember we saw, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, we saw some protests outside the White House. Remember the size of those gates? Remember the size of those fences? They were monstrous, right? Nobody was going over those. They were secured. The building was secured. So in other words, Congress, DC knows how to secure a building, right? It's Washington, DC. So why did they have little hurdles that an 8-year-old could just hurdle over, and probably do during track class, to guard the Capitol building on January 6th when they knew 1 million people were going to show up because they were upset? Why was that? Why were they moving bike racks around? All right, are you kidding me? It's a joke. Because they wanted all of this to happen. And I just want to say that I really enjoyed this format between these two guys, and I'd like to see more of this. I mean, I think it's great that they're talking about the issues in a public forum in a way that we can hear about, and I love it. So shout out to Matt Gaetz for creating this type of format. I think we should have more of our congresspeople talking in reasoned terms about the issues. And I really enjoy Thomas Massie for his kind of calm, collected investigation here. So really, really good stuff. Anyways, so we've got that. Now let's turn to some other people who don't have the same level heads. We've got these people reacting over on, I think, MSNBC. And she's explaining that they're getting pretty frustrated here because of these trial delays, right? It's all a show. We have the committee admitting that they are creating this to do some storytelling for America. And we now have evidence that this pipe bomb, which was, we suspect, inoperable and just a diversion, a decoy, something to create a story. If they couldn't cause an insurrection, they'd say Trump was responsible for the pipe bombs or something. And now we have these indictments that are based on that fake story, on that facade. And now Trump is being prosecuted, and they worked very hard to get the trial scheduled before the election. And here is this woman on MSNBC explaining that there are some delays here, and they're getting a little frustrated about it.
Look, the courts move slowly at the best of times, and these are not the best of times, Steph. It's surprising that we have not seen a decision from the Court of Appeals in the District of Columbia yet. I think we all anticipated that. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's a problem. These are just judges, 3 judges who have to reach a decision together. And sometimes that takes time. In my career as an appellate lawyer, it often took more than a year. Here we're talking about a matter of weeks. As far as Eileen Cannon goes, though, the handwriting has been on the wall for a long time that she'll do everything she can to prevent trying this case before the election takes place.
What is she talking about? It's a classified documents case. All of these cases take a long time, years, and now they want to squeeze this in months.
She's drawn out this process involved with classified discovery and her decision-making process to the point where the Section 4 hearing won't even take place until the middle of next month. So I think we can count out the possibility that this case gets tried anytime soon.
Yeah.
John.
So Florida is probably going to go after the election. And we'll probably see that the J6 case goes until after, well, maybe. I think that they're really going to try to get that one back on track. It doesn't matter when the appellate court decides, SCOTUS decides. I mean, if they could accelerate it, I honestly think Chutkan would schedule a trial for August. I think she'd do it. Like they've already pulled out all the stops. What do they care? You know, if it's clearly election rigging at this point, they don't care. So we've also got John Bolton. He's now selling a book, which is what they all do now. You know, they just sell a book and they sell it to the same salivating lefty audience. And he was on explaining all this really, really troubling stuff that Trump is going to do this time. He didn't do it last time, but he's definitely going to do it this time because of reasons.
Voluntarily this time.
Well,
that it essentially would end up with him not departing voluntarily.
Trump's not going to leave.
Well, I think what he would do in terms of seeking retribution through the Justice Department, what he would do potentially through the Defense Department, and some of the other agencies of government as well, would produce constant constitutional agitation to the point where I think it could cause government functions almost to break down. And when other mechanisms were applied, state criminal prosecutions, the federal cases, congressional oversight, we would be embroiled in litigation and controversy that could make it almost impossible to get back to normality after he's gone.
See, I hope he goes into some specifics here, because that was a full minute of just platitudes, right? You know, it's going to be constitutional disorder. And this is a point I made yesterday about this is how they talk all the time. You know, Trump's going to be chaotic because he's a total narcissist. He only thinks about himself. Every decision that he thinks about is all about glorifying the edifice of Donald Trump. And now, if we put him back in power, he's not going to leave. And he's going to cause real constitutional turmoil throughout all of America. I just talked for like 30 seconds. I said nothing. I said zero of nothing. All just platitudes. So I hope he's got some examples. Like, what's he going to do? If he says he's not going to leave voluntarily, well, he just left voluntarily after allegedly committing an insurrection. So what are you talking about?
This is because, as I think we saw beyond question in the first term, and I tried to document in my book,
He just doesn't know limits. What he cares about
What do you
is
mean?
the greater glory of Donald Trump. The concept of the national interest or American national
what, though,
security
specifically?
Are things he doesn't comprehend.
Like what?
And as I say, the pattern he established in the first term
What pattern?
will continue in the second and
What pattern? He left. What are you talking about?
just get worse.
What else concerns you, just given that you did
Specifically.
work with him up close? You were in the Situation Room with him. You were in these
Examples,
briefings in the
concrete
Oval
examples,
Office. I
please.
mean, what else are you worried about?
Yeah, what? What, John?
Well, other than COVID, which was a long-term crisis,
Okay.
we really were fortunate in Trump's first term that we didn't have major international crises, the sort of thing that we remember historically.
We were fortunate. Yeah, the stars aligned and it all just worked out for us. Like, you see how passive that is? Maybe that's because Trump's policies were good.
As very tense times in very short periods of time. We're going through that kind of crisis, I think, now in the Middle East. There are a lot of decisions that have to be made. I don't think Trump is capable of making the decisions
How come?
grounded in national security.
How come?
His attention span is short.
Oh, okay.
He doesn't know much about
Personal
world
insults.
history or world affairs.
Okay.
He actually doesn't think they matter very much. He thinks his personal relationships with foreign leaders, especially the authoritarian.
Again, no, not a single example. He's just talking like it's just an insult routine. That's all they have. It's wild. And once you see this, you're going to see it everywhere. So it's the same way with George Conway. Every time you hear from him, Liz Cheney sounds like this a lot. It's all talking about the constitutional order and Trump doesn't read books and stuff like that. What are you talking about? Can you give us something concrete, please?
And ones are all
like, for example, if you say, Rob, what's your problem with Joe Biden? I'd say 10,000 immigrants coming across the border every day, and we've got a proxy war in Russia, and we're going to have another proxy war in the Middle East. There's three things right there. I'm also very upset about his DOJ prosecuting American citizens with double standards, some people going to jail, others not, you know, that type of stuff. Those are specific, concrete examples that I think undermine the Constitution. We've got I can relate every one of those back to the Constitution. But all these people just keep talking about he doesn't read a book.
That matter. And while personal relations in international affairs are important, when you get in a situation like we see in the Middle East now, they're not significant. So faced with these decisions, Trump could go one way in the morning, a different way in the afternoon. He doesn't have the ability to stay consistent for long periods of time, except on one thing, which is how he looks in the press and in public attention. And that is very worrying. When you're in a crisis, you need a president who is resolute, who can keep his eyes on the prize and worry about our national security, not his own image.
Okay, so you saw that. That was 3 minutes of just platitudes. And that's all they talk about. It is kind of a TDS thing. It's like I would feel badly about myself if I said nothing with all of that breath. Like, come on, you wrote a book and you can't even give us any examples. Here's why, Caitlin. Here's what Trump did in the first term. I think that was just the beginning. Trump did this with Soleimani, and I think that type of pattern is going to happen again with Xi Jinping. Or when I was there in the White House, here's what I saw. And I was able to stop him from doing this thing. Like even that, like even if he made up a story. I was in the White House and Trump was about to do this thing and I stopped him from doing it. And I'm not going to be there the second term, and so I'm afraid he's going to do something else. Like, even that, I'd go, okay, at least there's an example. Like, at least you gave us a little bit of information there, not 3 minutes of platitudes, and Trump doesn't read books or something. All right, so that is what we're dealing with, all right? It's all fake. They all just have fake stories, and they don't even know what they're so upset about, and so they just go out there, and Caitlin Collins and all of them, they just play like this patty cake game about Trump is really bad. And so we're going to continue to call out these fools and these propagandists because the truth is coming out. Guys like Thomas Massie and others are unpacking the truth about what happened on January 6th. And so we'll be here, my friends. I hope you join us as we do. Thank you for liking this video wherever you're watching it. Thank you for subscribing and checking out robertgovea.com. The link is down in the description below. You can grab the PDFs that we read through here, sign up for our daily newsletter, grab some gear from the shop so you can look amazing while you're watching the show, and we'll look forward to seeing you back here on the next one. All right, and now we've got one final segment, and we're turning over to New York and Alvin Bragg. Alvin Bragg in New York City, they released some migrants who were just coming in here looking for jobs and a better life. And what happened, unfortunately, is they got into a little bit of an altercation with the police. I don't know what happened, but you know how police are. Sometimes they're just out there trying to enforce the law and, make sure people don't get hurt or injured. But they got attacked for doing that by these migrants who are speaking the song of their people to us in communicating in this language that is like sign language. And so we can't see what they're messaging there because this has been blurred out. But, you can judge, you can fill in the gaps there. I'm not sure if they're saying, I love you. Are they saying, I love you? Or is it something else? I don't know. But they don't seem very grateful that they were released without bond, without bail, so that they could go right back out onto the streets and maybe beat some more cops up. But this is the story over from ABC7. They say video was released after the NYPD officers were attacked. They were in Times Square and they got beaten up by these people looking for work. Here, 2 police officers were assaulted attempting to break up a disorderly crowd outside of a Midtown migrant shelter. Video was released. 5 suspects were arrested in the Saturday night assault. 2 men were taken into custody, including the man in yellow at the center of the melee. Several others are still being sought. A police officer and a lieutenant, they initially told a group of men, all believed to be migrants, to move from the front of the Candler building, which has been operating as a shelter. They said, can you please go somewhere else? A scuffle broke out, and several men assaulted the police officers, kicking them in the body and the head. One officer suffered cuts to the face, while the other was treated for bruising to the body. Now, 4 suspects were initially arrested. All were charged with assault. An assault on an officer is a big deal, at least in Arizona. It's a big problem here. You see a judge and you get scolded and you get a bond and you get all sorts of problems because it's a cop, right? And you're not supposed to do that. Now, all were charged with assault and all were released without bail during their arraignments. See that? Head on out. Do whatever you need to do. Now, a 5th man described as homeless was also picked up. He was arraigned. Now, this guy, Yorman, he was charged with assault on an officer, gang assault, obstructing government administration and disorderly conduct. Now, remember, there were some J6ers who got charged with things like disorderly conduct and obstructing governmental administration. Remember that? We've talked about a lot of them here. Just a couple miles over from New York right on down to D.C., anyone who had disorderly conduct or obstruction, some of those people are still sitting in custody in solitary confinement. But not these migrants, man. They're out roaming the streets again. God bless America. So Darren Andrice, also, he's 19 years old. That guy was 24. Also, assaulting a police officer, gang assault, obstructing government administration, and disorderly conduct. Free as a bird. This guy, Wilson Juarez, 21. And I like how they say they're from Queens. Right? Or this guy's from Columbus, Mississippi. Is he? Is this guy Yorman really from Brooklyn? Is he really from Brooklyn? Are you sure about that? Brooklyn, Guatemala? Is there a Brooklyn down there? What about this? Columbus, this guy's from Columbus, Mississippi. Which is interesting. As of what, like 2 weeks ago? This guy is Wilson Juarez. He's from Queens. Okay. He's also charged with gang assault and obstructing governmental administration and discon. Kelvin, also from Brooklyn, same thing, obstructing governmental administration and gang assault. Look at these, all of them. Johan, 22, Yahenry Brito, 24, Jandri Barros of Queens. I'm sure they're all from Queens. Now, he's charged with 2 counts of robbery and 2 counts of assault on a police officer. Free to go. Revron has 2 prior arrests. He also allegedly assaulted a Nordstrom Rack employee who's attempting to stop him from shoplifting. And last month, he punched a Macy's employee trying to stop him from another robbery. Now, Wednesday night, NYPD Assistant Commissioner vowed to find the remaining suspects. And NYPD Chief of Patrol, John Chell, he blasted the attack. He called it reprehensible and called them cowards. Now, the Police Benevolent Association is furious that they were released without bail by Alvin Bragg and his prosecutors. Like, that's actually what, happens. When you in front of a judge says release conditions. You have to define those. Government typically comes in and says, hey, this is a violent person who attacked a police officer, generally. We think he should be in custody. We ask for a $5,000 bail, $10,000 bail. Absolutely reasonable. Why? Because he attacked a cop. And if they'll attack a cop, what else will they do, right? So you say, we're going to hold that person in custody lest they can prove that they deserve to get out. But the Bragg prosecutors did not do that. So he says attacks on police officers are becoming an epidemic. And the reason it's a revolving door we're seeing in cases like this one, it's impossible for police officers to deal with this if we can't be protected while we do our work. Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, who's busy prosecuting Trump, he's defending his prosecution. He said, violence against police officers is never acceptable. It's paramount that we conclusively identify each participant's role, and every defendant, look, they charged them with felonies, and it's up to a 7-year penalty, but they're free to go out there in New York. So that's what happened. And then as soon as they got out of court, here was what they had to say to all of us. This is what they said to you, America, and to the people of New York. Thanks for releasing me without
illegal
bond.
Immigrants.
Thank you.
Just into Fox News now, NYPD making 2 more arrests, illegal immigrants, and that attack on officers. Those suspects also allegedly stole an officer's cell phone.
Nice.
Well, that'll help them track you down. So a 5th illegal immigrant accused of attacking 2 New York City police officers over the weekend showed no remorse or regret. He was seen, as you can see, giving his 2 middle fingers to the cameras moments after being released without bail. Florida Senator Marco Rubio wrote, "Message to America from one of the illegal immigrants who assaulted NYPD officers, walked free with no bail, and heads back to a shelter funded by taxpayers." So far, police have shared 4 mugshots of the now 7 people arrested in connection with the brutal beatings in Times Square.
And that's who's here. Look at that guy. Very, very happy to be here. Thanks for your justice, America. Out there just kicking cops in the head, and he's flipping everybody off as he's walking down the street. So, I'm sure this is just an aberration, right? There's not, he's just looking for work, right? He's just looking for work. He just wants to have a nice life here in America. Hey, thanks for holding me up. Thanks for bringing me here. Thanks for putting me in this city. And I'm going to beat your cops up, and your courts are just going to let us walk free. So that's where, a lot of the country is heading. I mean, this is kind of a canary in the coal mine in many places. And that's, I guess, what they want for the rest of us. Now, our congressional so-called leaders are talking about a border bill where the rumors are they're going to allow more of that to happen. Something like 5,000 people can come across every day before they shut down the border. We've already talked about some of this concern. But now Congress is getting closer to a deal, and Crenshaw is very unhappy with people who are asking questions about a ridiculous border bill that would cause more immigration for the foreseeable future. Here's what he said when he was asked questions by CNN.
The height of stupidity is having a strong opinion on something you know nothing about. I'm extremely disappointed in the very strange maneuvering by many on the right to torpedo a potential border reform bill. If we have a bill that, on net, significantly decreases illegal immigration, and we sabotage that, that is inconsistent with what we told our voters we would do. People will make up whatever reasons they want to. There's a number of them, I'm sure. But it would be a pretty unacceptable dereliction of your duty.
And the question is, where does this go from here? The negotiators in the Senate are still hoping to put out text of this deal as soon as this week. That is what Senator James Lankford told reporters earlier today. And Chris Murphy, one of those 3 negotiators, said it makes no sense, in his view, for Republicans to walk away from this deal after trying to strike one for months and months and months. But that is exactly what they're weighing right now in the upper echelons of the Senate GOP, saying, what is the point of going forward with this deal if it's going to get killed in the House? Mitch McConnell non-committal about the way forward, even as he supports the underlying elements of this deal.
Yeah, we don't want some crap deal just to solve the border issue so that we can take it off the table. We want an actual border solution. We don't want some token border bill that allows a certain amount of criminality. It's like we're only going to investigate domestic violence offenses once they cross 5,000 a day. If it's under 5,000 domestic violences, then it's not that big of a deal. But if it's over 5,000 domestic violences, well, then we're going to shut down domestic violence. It's a big problem, but only if it's more than 5,000. What? No, Zero coming across the border, secure the border, then you can talk about what you want to do in the aftermath. But that is not what they're doing now. So Crenshaw says everyone's stupid for talking about reportings on their bill that they're creating and crafting under the dark of night. Jen Psaki has a new show called Inside Jen Psaki, and she brought this dude on to talk about the border deal. And here's what they had to say, saying Republicans better take this deal. This is a really good deal for them. Trust us. We're Jen.
It seems like what Donald Trump wants is to run on the border. To run on the border as being in crisis and not actually have a solution. Don't you think that's a big part of the issue here?
That's 100% what's going on.
He had a solution, Jen. They had a solution. The border was a lot more secure by exponential amounts when he was in charge. You don't need to pass this big, gargantuan, disgusting bill that's going to institutionalize the border problems. It's already been done. Joe Biden undid a bunch of it. I think 64 different things that have been chronicled by the House. So he can just put those back in place. Border solved, no problem.
There's no substantive argument left for them. Joe Biden has gone, I think, further than a lot of progressives are comfortable with.
Yeah, it's an imperfect bill. A lot of people don't like it.
It makes me pretty uncomfortable. But, you know, for Ukraine, I am prepared to swallow some of these provisions that I certainly would not have written. Or
guy's going to swallow this bill for Ukraine. Wow, that's dedication.
Agreed to under other circumstances. But here we are trying to forge a bipartisan compromise because, frankly, the fate of Europe, the fate of the free world is at stake. And Republicans woke up one morning. Some of them went to Mar-a-Lago. Some of them read a tweet. And now they're against the very thing that they demanded.
It seems like what.
All right, so they are wanting to solve this issue, I think, so badly that they'll make a bad deal. Like they'll say, all right, look, we want unfettered immigration. We really want 100,000 people coming across every day, but we'll take 10. We'll take 5 if we can get it. But they know it's a big problem. So they want the Republicans to help them take this off the table. Hopefully the Republicans are much smarter than that. CNN was asking these two guys about it, other Congress people. I think this is a Republican and a Democrat. They're doing like this, duo thing. And here's what it sounded like on CNN.
Yeah, but the speaker said no before you just said you haven't seen the legislation. The speaker is describing it and saying it's dead on arrival.
Well, with all due respect, Jake, with all due respect, you haven't seen the bill. And interestingly, over the last few weeks, the media has been trying to pressure everyone to agree to a deal that hasn't actually been produced. Why don't we see what the final bill is, and then let's see if they pass it, and then we negotiate. The bottom line is we have to secure the border. President Biden and the Biden administration actually have authority right now to start to enforce our laws, and they're choosing not to, and that is a big part of the problem here.
Yeah, and Jake, by the way, the speaker said no because Donald Trump said no. The speaker is Donald Trump's no boy, okay, on this subject. Look, I'll give Republicans credit for a second. They have been highlighting the border for a long time, okay, and we were late to start addressing it. But now that we want to address it, now that we want to lower the amount of fentanyl coming in, now that we want to deal with non-documented folks, now we want to deal with supposed terrorists potentially.
So that's a Democrat, and now he's saying, yeah, we were a little bit late to this, but now we would love to solve it so we don't have to deal with it for the election, because we know it's going to be very bad for us, and Trump's going to ride on this thing hard.
Coming into the country. Now, the Republicans, controlled by one man, are saying, no, we need this for the next 10 months. We need more of it, in fact, for the next 10 months so that we can use it in election. Both things are true here. This is why people hate Washington. Both things are true. The Biden administration and Democrats were slow. But now that we're here at the table, Republicans are like, no, let's walk away.
The question is, what is in the actual bill?
So nobody has
actually seen the bill.
The bill is dead. Donald Trump has said the bill is dead. The bill's dead.
The question.
All right, so yeah, but hopefully the bill is dead. That would be a good thing, because they're going to try to cram through nonsense that we don't need in our law. Mike Johnson is the Speaker of the House. He was talking about it, and he has, these were 64 actions. These are 64 things that Joe Biden did specifically to weaken the border, right? He changed the rules. Things were not nearly as bad as they were today, right? Trump didn't get all the wall built exactly how he wanted it, but he got some of it done. And the situation there, the disincentives, which are, I think, the biggest part of the whole equation, are you incentivizing people to come or not? Create a strong disincentive, they don't come. So Joe Biden took power and did 64 things to reverse all of that progress. Now they want the Republicans' help in fixing it. How about we just beat Joe Biden at the ballot and just reverse everything on our own? Thanks, though.
Since President Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas
assumed office, there have been more than 7 million encounters with illegal aliens just at our southern border alone.
That we've counted.
35 of our 50 states, including my home state of Louisiana, don't have a population that large.
Nope.
Yet that's how many people have been apprehended in just the past 3 years. Among those who've been apprehended on the southern border, but between ports of entry, more than 300 individuals who are on our terror watch list. Terrorist watch list. The frightening question is, if so many terrorists were caught attempting to cross our borders, how many have entered undetected? We suspect it is a much higher number.
Yep.
And we know that there are at least 1.8 million gotaways that we know have escaped CBP. Who knows what dangerous plans those gotaways are making and what foreign adversaries they may be speaking with. Understand the situation at our border presents a clear and present danger to our national security, and it demands that it be addressed.
All right, so he goes through 64 different things that Joe Biden did. All you got to do, reverse a lot of those things. But this goes over to Mitch McConnell, and he is, of course, the leader in the Senate of the Republicans, and he's doing something that I find to be distasteful, not commenting on a bunch of stuff. And you say, hey, hello, Mitch, you're a leader in the Senate. We need you to comment on this stuff. But he doesn't want to talk about the border and Trump.
How do you think how do you think voters would look at Republicans if the GOP were to kill a bipartisan deal that you cut with the White House because of Donald Trump's opposition?
Well, I think I'm going to continue not to comment on the presidential campaign. Obviously, this is an incredibly challenging political discussion we've been having. I still favor trying to make law when you can. And I do think that what Senator Langford and his team are going to produce is an improvement over current law. You're asking me a question I can't answer right now.
How do you think Republicans? All right, so thank you, Mitch, for your strong, stern leadership. But we know that while they're fooling around in Washington, the great state of Texas isn't playing around. And Lieutenant Governor Patrick is now explaining what their position is going to be for the foreseeable future. He says this is an invasion and we're going to be dealing with it accordingly.
In Texas, we believe we are following the Constitution. Article 4, Section 4, Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3. We have a right to defend American citizens and Texas citizens, and we're going to do it.
That's right.
And we're going to win at the court. We passed Senate Bill 4. I wrote most of that bill along with Governor Abbott, and that bill will be before the Supreme Court that says we have a right to defend ourselves against invasion, because this is an invasion from third world countries. They're coming here with health issues. They're uneducated, unemployed. All they do is commit crime on the streets.
We hear the urgency from you. To your point, not all, but certainly we have numbers to show that many of them do have these issues and are causing these problems and committing crimes.
Beating cops, and our Congress is just, spinning themselves around the hamster wheel. So, my friends, we're going to be here, obviously, continuing to cover all of this stuff. Alvin Bragg allowing cop beaters to roam free around his city of New York while Congress fiddles, while the nation is invaded. But thank you for joining us as we cover this and more. Don't forget to subscribe wherever it is you're watching this. I'd love it if you hit that like button before you headed on to the next video. Thanks for checking out robertgovea.com. We've got a lot of good stuff there. Our PDFs are all uploaded there. We have a daily newsletter that I'd love it if you signed up for and then forwarded our emails to everybody you've ever met in your entire life. And we've also got our shop where you can grab some gear, including the Watcher hat with the Watcher logo on there, robertgovea.com. Links are in the description below, my friends, and we'll look forward to seeing you back here on the next one. All right, my friends. Well, we covered some good ground today. We talked about Alvin Bragg and the immigration situation. The J6 Storytelling Committee is admitting that they're purely propagandists. And we've also got the Obama judge rejecting some witnesses in that Georgia election trial. And that's going to be interesting to watch. So we're going to keep our eye on that one. But now, my friends, it is time to hear from you. Let's see what you have to say about this. I very much appreciate your amazing support on the show, on the day. and your comments. We are, after the stream is over here, going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party. We love hanging with our membos. We do membo streams in the morning. We already did a live stream today, and we do streams on Saturday. So come and check us out. We got some fun stuff that we're doing there. So, and along with an amazing community, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We'll be there in just a few minutes. Now, starting us off on the day, John McGarvey in the house. What's up, John? Bringing in new membos. And I think John had to run out of here today. But John is bringing in new membos. Celsify is here. Archangel's coming in the house. Miss Ellie is joining us. Southern Comfort and Ron H. all joining courtesy of John McGarvey. Thank you, John. Hopefully you're having a beautiful day, my friend. We got this one. Karen Wolf is our latest supporter. Welcome aboard, Karen. And hey, for new membos, don't forget to grab the Telegram link on the community, in the community tab section on the YouTube homepage. That's where the after party will be for membos on YouTube. Glocky is sharing this story about 3 people arrested for producing fake IDs, sharing this story that we talked about here today. Glocky is also sharing this report that Fannie is going to refuse to step down after the allegations. And this one, talking about Scott McFarland. Thank you for the stories, Glocky. Saying, amid the wait for the claims of appeal, the trial is still on schedule for March 4th, pending the outcome of the appeal. Glocky says, oh, just in case anyone was wondering, it's not just Trump's Democrats that are kicking off ballots to save my democracy. Yeah, in Salem, Oregon, there were some people that got booted off the ballot. We got this meme, speaking of our last segment here from Glocky. Joe Biden gave that immigrant looking for work a Medal of Honor for being here and invading America. Thank you, Glocky, for that one. Hey, what's up, Babs? Says Amy Totenberg's older sister, Nina, is a Supreme Court correspondent for NPR. Isn't that fun? I wonder what her politics are. Yeah, we got this one from Glocky saying, surprise, surprise, people have fled. Thanks, Glocky. Ella, what's up, Ella, our newest supporter? Welcome aboard, Ella. Very good to see you. Thanks for joining us. B-Man says, I believe the producer of the J6 propaganda is the same ABC producer who nixed that Epstein expose. Fryer's back that was caught on Hot Mic for years back when that was caught during Hot Mics. I do remember that. Yeah, there was that woman. What was her name? Martha Raddatz or something, who said that, yeah, she had everything. We had everything on Epstein, and they booted it. Crazy. NY says, how is Biden going to East Palestine many months later? Not political. Biden is delusional. They are doing it so that they can say that they went. Glocky says, wait. You mean that the same election officials that are refusing to update the software on the machines until after the election? That's the Georgia story. Thanks, Glocky. Chubby says, Totenberg attended Harvard? Has anyone checked her judicial rulings for plagiarism yet? But yeah, I love that one from Chubby. Don't know. Are there any Claudine Gay opinions there? Yokava says BH Williams is Uniform Overseas Citizens Access to Voting Act or some such absentee ballots from overseas. Thank you, BH, for filling in the gaps there. Hey, what's up, American Granny? Says, great job, Robert, and everyone in the group. I love seeing and hearing the great info, not just that you report on, but I enjoy seeing what the community shares. I have learned a lot. Thumbs up and cheers to a great place. What a lovely endorsement of our locals community, American Granny. Yeah, that's what's cool about locals, is it's not just our content. You can share your own stories. The community shares stories. You can comment on each other's stories. It's like it's like a feed of other political news with people that you know and love, the Watcher fam. What's up, Glocky? Says, here's the new reverse psyop that we need to do. Here, don't let Trump cheat. We all need to demand voter ID. Don't let Trump cheat. We all need ID. We got Glocky says, in France, they vote with paper and it goes into a sealed clear box in front of everyone. No secrets or nothing. Get results in like 3 hours with 20 different parties and candidates running. American elections are a joke. BH says that goes against proper audit practices. The certification depends on specific versions of hardware, software, and settings. If they're changing settings and changing the software, the certification is null and void. Yeah, that's right. It's like, if someone opens your DoorDash order when it's en route to you and they adjust your dinner That's not the same dinner. And you have doubts about eating that, you know? It has been interfered with. Great point, BH. Says typically software is numbered going from 5.5A to 5.17 should not require a complete reinstall. That's clown stuff world. Yeah, so I think maybe it's just a different software suite, you know, like it's a whole different platform. Yeah, because I agree. It should be like 5.6, 5.5B or 5.6, right? Weird. What's up, Quantum Thug Life? Who's quantuming it out, who's thugging it out in multiple dimensions. Bringing in 5 new membos. Tim D, Will C, Juanita B's coming in. We've also got Q Essence and Tom C all coming in courtesy of Quantum Thug Life in the house. Ray K, we have a 2-year anniversary. Oh my goodness. Happy anniversary, Ray K. 24 months. That's a long time. And it's been 2 years since the Freedom Convoy. Is that right? So, gosh, man, that was a wild scene. That was so wild. Remember Vivo was out there on the streets freezing to death with the Freedom Convoy truckers? That was wild, man. It's still going on. You know, it turns out that they were the tyrants we thought they were. The dictators up there in Canada. Crazy. Yeah, it's good to see you, Ray K. We've been through a lot, man. I've been through a lot. We're just getting started. We're just getting warmed up. It's going to be a wild year. Here's to another 24 months. Cheers to you, Ray K. Thanks for being here, man. What's up, Knox? Happy Thursday, all. I think I am too sickened by all this J6 garbage. I cannot even say anything sarcastic. I feel you on it. It's just, it feels like a movie, honestly. It's like, you know, it reminds me of V for Vendetta. We watched that as a locals community. We watched that movie and then debriefed it. And in that film, we saw like the propaganda fully on display. It feels like we're watching that. And like half the country's like, yeah, insurrection. Yeah. What is with you people? NY says they also spoliated a good amount of J6 evidence by destroying it after it went to the White House. Yeah, there's a lot of evidence that is missing by their own account. Terabytes of data, I believe. Like they didn't even record the full or transmit the full video files from their recorded depositions. They just deleted it. Why'd they do that? This one from Pinecone. What's up, Pinecone? Bringing in 1 new membo. Danny M is coming in, courtesy of Pinecone. Thank you for being a membo and for bringing in more membos, Pinecone. Yeah, Glocky says, Fulton County Fannie Willis has no plans to step down. Of course not. What? She didn't do anything wrong. Don't be racist, okay? Don't be racist, okay? She's fine. She didn't do anything wrong. If she wants to, you know, use taxpayer money to go on Caribbean cruises with her Nathan Wade hot dog, well, she's free to do that because she's saving America. And the rest of us are just peasants. We don't know any better. Hey, this one from Glocky says, so friggin' awesome. Argentinian president has caught 45,000 federal workers. That's great, yeah. In 53 days, almost 1,000 federal workers fired per day. Gone. Wow, that's just great. Gosh. Second look at Argentina. Wow. A Bad Poet says, if a red wave did not crash against the blue wall of ballot stuffing and cheating, the J6 narrative would be the truth. Texas would not be able to stand up for itself, or they would get the Trump too. Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I think if Texas falls, yeah, that's a big problem for all of us, which is probably why, you know, I think they were okay with having Texas invaded because they wanted to flip Texas, and that was a nice strategy to do that. But when Texas started shipping them to their home states, to their cities, they didn't like that so much. So the whole strategy had to change. What's up, Rich Abbey, sending in a nice dono. Thank you, Rich. I do appreciate that. No question on it, but thanks for sending it in. And NY says, when John Bolton was around, we went to war and it cost us dearly. Talk about narcissism. He would reinstitute Bush 2.0 and double down. Well, he didn't even say anything interesting. I remember John Bolton used to like talk and I'd be like, wow, he said that was an interesting fact. None of that there. STFU says J6 was a psyop and Hollywood has started repeating the brainwashing. Go buy a theater. The collapse of the movie industry is both shocking and called for. That feels true. I think they wokeified themselves out of an audience. And now they're being replaced by people who are more creative, more intelligent, and not woke, which is good. Hollywood is degenerate anyway. We got, what's up, Knox says, personal relationships with foreign leaders used to be called diplomacy. That's right. It did. It did. Now Trump is just a maniac because John Bolton says so. His mustache was agitating him that day. NY says John Bolton was fired. Next. Knox says Trump has written like 6 books. I searched for John Bolton books and the Hellraiser guy comes up. Oh, that's funny. Well, yeah, I mean, you know, he's doing the book thing. They just all do it. It's like the only other thing they can do. NY says, doesn't a felony conviction require deportation? I don't know anymore. I don't think anything does. Now, if they are released, then they have no incentive to return for trial. Yeah, well, that's obviously true. It's like, do you think that they're going to return to trial anyways? That's kind of the reason you hold them in bail. Like you make them post bail. So if they don't come back, then you've got some recourse. But if there is no bail, the likelihood that they come back is gone, right? If they're not citizens here, they're not coming back. They just go to Chicago. Nobody will ever find them again. That's the kind of the point. It's like, wow, they're going to escape all liability for beating cops. Tara, what's up? Says, just thinking about the J6 lack of security. Pelosi et al. Are really dumb, or not. Maybe this was their plan. Terror attacks by people that don't love the U.S. would have had a red carpet. I just can't get it. Yeah, it's either they were incompetent or they were in on it. They were negligent. We got A. Watson says, Trump doesn't read books. Response, he writes the books. Deal with it. And NY says, sounds like a RICO operation. When liberal prosecutors selectively prosecute based on intersectionality or the person charged, if they're migrant and homeless, they have no ties to the community and are clearly a flight risk. It's indefensible. The country needs to wake up. We have an internal insurrection going on right now. We need to build a big prison for those who aided and abetted all the illegals to invade our country. Says this is the cry of Democrats. Simply Republicans are evil because they don't vote for Democrat bills. They don't believe in democracy. It's all about power. They broke the borders and they're blaming Republicans. They don't need a new law at all. Seawolf says, we need single issue spending bills. Then we could get around the BS of having to agree to America Last spending to secure the border. Yeah. And we'd have some accountability. We would know where the money's going, and they wouldn't be able to put a wheelbarrow full of Ukraine money into normal bills, separate it out. 1917 Beamer. Yeah, we're waiting for an Engeron ruling, man. I've been waiting around. I'm like, is it going to drop today? Hopefully it drops today. Is it going to drop? Is it going to drop? And it hasn't dropped. It didn't drop. But 1917 over on Local says, I predict Engeron will be ruling on Monday and it will be live so he can lecture President Trump. Yeah, you think he'll do it in open court? I was just thinking he was just going to drop a written opinion. I kind of have a feeling it might come out Friday too. Sometimes, there are Friday drops. But maybe we'll see it's Monday. I don't know. We're waiting for it. Hey, what's up, Queen Bee's Art Hive over on YouTube? What's up, Queen Bee's Art Hive? Very nice to see you. Thanks for being a membo. 3 months. The first month's always the hardest. It gets easier from there. And we're glad that you're here. It says, love y'all. Hearts and prayers right back to you, Queen Bee. Thanks for being here and for joining as a membo. And we're 1/3 of the way to a baby here. Pilot Andrew, what's up? Thanks for the nice dono over on Locals. A pilot's in the house, man. Amazing. Nice. Pilot Andrew. Man, that's cool. We need good pilots. I'm getting nervous about some of the pilots up in the sky these days. What's up, Share Coats? Welcome as our newest supporter on YouTube. Don't forget to grab that Telegram link at the community tab on the main homepage. Dolphin Fan is the man in the house. Bringing in L. What's up? Bringing in L. Bringing in Greg M. We got Gloria B's coming in. Pat H is in the house, along with Doll, joined thanks to Dolphin Fan is the man, bringing in our 5 newest membos in the house. And another membo. What's up? Paranormal's joining us. Amazing. So again, the Telegram link is on the community tab on Locals, on YouTube, and you can grab it there. Jeremiah says, never forget, never again. And what the heck is this? Is this someone doing a Fosbury flop over the White House gates? It looks like a Fosbury flop over the White House gates. And it's also in the same format of Joe Biden's election results. Remember that? Remember we all went to bed? We woke up. And then Joe Biden had that massive spike in the votes. Well, that's weird. Where the heck did that come from? Oh, yeah, the water main broke in Fanny's court. Stefan, what's up? Stephen Evans, good to see you. Says, keep it up with the pair lifting weights, man. Got to keep that weight going. We finished our Watch Your Lodge fitness challenge yesterday, and it was awesome. I can't tell you how awesome it was. It was such a fun live stream yesterday. We had so many good results from our fitness challenge at watcherlodge.com. I'm serious about it. It was like really moving. It was awesome. So what's up? We got Geegum Geegum says, I was an election judge last round, and we were told we couldn't ask for ID. If someone wanted to show it, fine, but we couldn't ask for it. Yeah. Lady Ice says, I've been a poll watcher, and we could accept ID, but could not ask. A lot of New York uses those same machines and always have so many issues and are absolutely hooked up to Wi-Fi, and they do not work. Same situation here in Arizona. We got, hey, what's up? Shablam over on Rumble. Thank you. Says, this is for yesterday. Great show you have. Missed most of today, but we'll catch up. Awesome. Thank you, Shablam. Thanks for being a member on Rumble. Thanks for the nice dono, and thanks for watching the show. And shout out to our friends on the Rumbles. Very good to see everybody. Indoctrination, Jack G, users over there. C. Lease is there. What's up, Daisy Girl? What's up, Vegas Oasis? What's up, Jake and Castro? What's up, user? All on Rumble. We got Lady Ice sharing this one. Says, for $200, here is your question. Question. Which event holds the record of the single highest human fatalities for a single day? Is it A, and I don't think this is really how Jeopardy works, but A, the bombing of Hiroshima, B, 9/11, the eruption of Mount Vesuvius C, or D, the massacre of Verdun, 772 AD? Alex says, Kinzinger says, Alex, what is the January 6th Capitol insurrection? And the Jeopardy guy says, huh? All right. Jeopardy memes in the house. Thank you for that, Lady Ice. We got another one from Sandy says, Atlas Shrugged can be found online free as a movie, part 1, 2, and 3. Highly recommended. I haven't seen those. That sounds good. Are there 3 parts to that? I thought there was only 1 part. Did they do all 3? That sounds good. Maybe I'll check that out. Stephen Mosher, what's up? Says historians weighed in with an amicus today, probably talking about the ballot removal case at SCOTUS, Colorado case. There have been a lot of amicus briefs have been filed. So thank you for that, Stephen. Maybe we'll talk about that tomorrow. Thanks for the ping. NY says, so when Bolton was nominated by Trump, I remember CNN was 24/7 apoplectic over it. Now he's their darling. Yeah, he was like a warmonger guy that, was anti-left. I'm glad Bolton is on CNN now. We are safe. No one will be exposed to Bolton's warmongering propaganda. Nobody's going to see it. It's on CNN. Neuro says, how would Trump go about getting the J6 documentary footage? Well, send a demand for it over to the government. And if they don't have it, right? Like if they don't have, they might have some of that. If they don't have it, then ask, the judge for a subpoena to go get it, make a demand for it and then go get it, essentially. Just like discovery, follow the discovery process ordinarily. Maybe even ask him for it. Maybe they'll give it to him. But Sergeant Willie's here. 8 months, 1 month away from a baby. Says, Bombs 101, don't text about it on the radio. Or don't transmit on the radio. Bomb Threat 101. Sergeant Willie giving us this knowledge. 8 months as a membo. Thank you, Sergeant. 1 more month to a baby. And yeah, so they're like calling on the radio. Hey, there's a bomb here, and it triggers the bomb. Not good. But we're talking about DC, DC law enforcement. So what do they know? Steven, what's up? Stephen Mosher says, Trump and Pelosi did nothing to stop the violence under the theory that, quote, failing to act is engaging. All of us are insurrectionists. It's true. It's true. I was in Arizona and I did nothing to fly out to Washington, D.C. to stop the violence. I did nothing to do it. I could have gone out there. I could have like Trump should have, I could have grabbed someone's clavicle and gone to the Capitol to stop this or done something. I failed to act. I'm an insurrectionist. Like, that's a scary thought. Like, that's the new standard. You didn't do something that we think you should do. Well, you're not the president. You don't tell me what to do. Yeah, I do. And if you don't do what I say, then you're indicted for that. Scary times, Stephen. Scary times indeed. Now, my friends, thank you for those. Very generous. Much appreciated. Let's say hello to our friends on the X platform before we wrap it up and go over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party. What's up? Spot of Blue is also here. Spot of Blue says, just something for all the great info. Thanks for that, Spot of Blue. Very nice of you to send that one in. Grateful for you there. I appreciate you saying that. Let's see who is on the X platform and joining us. We've got 25 viewers in the house. And yeah, we got the Joe Biden meme. Paul Me Knows in the house. Oh, we've got Paul Me Knows in the house. This is what our locals party looks like. It's ladies' night on locals, courtesy of Paul Me Know. Paul Meme No. What's up? V says, did he mention that terrorist at the border? We know who that is. V's here. Says step 1, pillage resources from the country. Step 2, people from the country come here for the resources. Step 3, get citizens to argue over what to do with the people, distracting you from the pillaging. Says, personally, I find some good ones and send them back with guns, says V. So that they can go fix their own countries. V says, might want to take a close look at some of those new policies in Argentina. Don't say I didn't warn you. V's talking about truckers, saying, glad this bill got voted down, from Vientikis. And a couple more comments from V that are over there. Danny says, Georgia election was rigged. Danny says, Rob, why are you fixated on babies? Well, we have a lot of them. We're trying to breed this world into a better position through Membo babies. That's why. Craig Voss is here. What's up, Dark Side? Says, great show as always. Looks like Oregon has thrown 10 GOP members off the ballot. So now it's the domino effect is happening. They're just going to start saying, we think you're an insurrectionist, and so you don't get to participate. Lil Nugget says, great show. I have no words. My head is exploding, and I'm trying to learn sign language too. Yeah, it's a complicated language that they're speaking to us here in America. I wonder what they're trying to communicate to us. Probably respect. Thank you for taking us into your country and providing us with this place to live and all this stuff. But no. V says, I'm just going to manually put in on electronic machines the word hacked machine. They all probably are anything. It's not like your vote counts on one of those anyways. And a quote from Bolton, if Trump gets reelected, the pattern of hiring me will continue and things will just get worse. And so, my friends, that is what we've got over on the X platform. Thanks for following us over there at Rob Govea ESQ. And of course, we've also got other watchers out there in the wild on the X. And so make sure you're following them, retweeting their stuff, and liking their posts as well. But that is it for us on the day, my friends. Before we wrap it up, we want to say thanks to our mods and our meme smiths. Big shout outs to our friends Vientikis Prime, K Bean in the house, Just Cause, Playin' Hooky, Ronnie Cole, our friend Zulu, Beyond Geo, Zach Nichols, John Allen, Janek, Dog Digger, and Donut Mind Me, along with our meme smiths, Sleepy Dog Lee's back in the house on the X, Geegum Geegum, and our friend Nathan NA10 over on the locals. My friends, that is it for us on the day. We are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party. YouTube friends, join us on Telegram. We'll see you there. We hope to see you on locals too. But if not, well, we're going to be back here tomorrow to get into it all again. It's going to be a beautiful Friday, and we need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. See you back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.